Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, thank you very much, Peter, for that introduction. And I'd like to acknowledge my fellow presenters for this panel session. As the chairperson of the Indigenous Land Corporation, it is a great pleasure to be here this morning, or this afternoon actually. And I also would like to thank the organisers, because this is the first time that the Indigenous Land Corporation has been invited, and it's an honour to be here. I was raised in the Murchison Gascoyne area of Western Australia and descended on one part of my family from the Yamatji people. So I'd just like to acknowledge whose country we're on. My presentation today will focus on the ILC's efforts to encourage and support Indigenous economic development through participation in the live export trade, and provide case studies of how this is happening on the ground. But first, I'd just like to do a little snapshot of what is the ILC. We were formed by the Australian Government as an independent statutory authority back in 1995, and this was due to the fallout of the Mabo legislation on native title. And we were created to provide social, cultural, economic and environmental benefits to Indigenous people by assisting them to purchase land or acquire land, and also to manage their Indigenous held land. We receive an annual income of $45 million, which comes out of a realised real return from an account we call the Indigenous Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Land Account. This account at the moment sits at around $1.8 billion. So we have a drawdown from that, as I said, of $45 million minimum per year. We are not we don't receive any ongoing funding from the Australian Government through the normal budgetary process. So in general terms, our land management program assists in the development of Indigenous-owned land, including bringing it into production. In doing so, we aim to facilitate the focus of job-focused training in creating sustainable jobs, and to keep and help to develop viable and sustainable land-based enterprises. To these ends, we have targeted the agricultural, pastoral and tourism industry as best placed to achieve these objectives. Some Indigenous landowners have approached the ILC asking us to lease their land in return for the ILC developing their land through infrastructure, capital, helping build individual and organisational capacity, property and business planning, and to facilitate collaboration with industry partners. This is what the ILC has done in two of my case studies, at Gumbalanya and Manyiri in the Northern Territory. We also collaborate with others to provide land management advice at regional level. Many of you may have heard of the Kimberley Indigenous Management Support Services in Western Australia and the Indigenous Pastoral Program in the Northern Territory. Both of those I will return to later, but firstly I'd just like to talk about the fact that we've ourselves, the ILC, has established 13 pastoral businesses across Australia, ranging from lamb and fine wool merino production to Brahman cattle in Northern Australia. So in accordance with our Act that established the ILC, these businesses are run as commercial enterprises using sound business principles. Each of these businesses incorporates modern residential training facilities where Indigenous trainees can obtain accredited, industry-focused pastoral training while earning award wages. The ILC is now a major player in the live export industry and is currently in the top 20 cattle producers with a herd of over 90,000 head. As all of the ILC operated cattle stations, bar one, are north of the Tropic of Capricorn in savanna environments where Brahman cattle are best suited for production. The most viable and logical market is the live export trade, and there are significant Indigenous populations in the vicinity of all our properties. Last financial year, ILC operated businesses employed over 390 Indigenous staff and trainees. As a board, we believe that the live export industry is important because it provides a diversity of real training opportunities and sustainable employment, which are often not available to regional and remote Indigenous communities. My case studies today focus on the socio-economics and benefits being delivered through long-term projects which are developing sustainable businesses in the remote Indigenous communities of Gunmalanya and Manyiri in the top end, and through regional approaches such as the Roebuck Export Depot in the Kimberley and the Indigenous pastoral programs across the Northern Territory. Gunbalanya. At Gunbalanya, also known as Owen Pally, in remote Western Arnhem Land, 320 kilometres east of Darwin, the ILC is working with an existing Indigenous business to create new live export jobs and at the same time improve the supply of fresh, more affordable meat to the nearby communities. In agreement with the Gunbalanya Meat Supply Proprietary Limited, GMS, and the Northern Land Council, the ILC will spend approximately $3.1 million over 15 years to upgrade and manage the community-owned meatworks business and the floodplain developed as a grazing enterprise at Gunbalanya. The enterprise will be managed by the ILC as Gunbalanya Meats and Gunbalanya Station under a 15-year lease, which holds a 20-year land use agreement, and that is the Gunbalanya Meat Supply Proprietary Limited own the land use agreement. The injection of our funds will see Gunbalanya cattle herd grow from 1,000 to 7,000 head, employment increase from 8 to 28 pastoral and abattoir jobs, and active involvement by the Gunbalanya community to live export cattle trade for the first time. Prior to our involvement, the station had around 75 square kilometres of fencing and holding a capacity of about 3,000 head of cattle. Under this new arrangement, we have significantly funded for building and infrastructure works which have occurred, including construction of a larger, modern abattoir, accommodation quarters, new water infrastructure, and hundreds of kilometres of new fencing, and that's already been achieved. So with our assistance, over a total of 800 square kilometres of land has been fenced, including some of the fantastic black soil floodplain in this area. Young stock will be sourced from other Indigenous properties at Strangeways and Warragambu and grown and finished at Gunbalanya. Much of this stock will be sold for live export, and abattoir production will increase approximately 25 beasts, 15 cattle and 10 buffalo per week to fill local demand. Believe it or not, there is a huge demand for buffalo meat, not just in the Territory, but particularly down in Melbourne. So that is just going to increase. So the positive outcomes of this project for the community extend far beyond the profits generated from the commercial business. The Gunbalanya Pastoral and Meatworks operations will provide job-ready training for local people and will, at full capacity, employ 28 Indigenous people. So just think of the flow-on effect of 28 people that were previously not employed on full salaries, and the economic and social impact that has on the community just with that 28. And of course, and then you've got the flow-on effect of those that are in the cattle industry as well. So with the important development from the ILC, it will take on an even more important function as a centre for Indigenous employment and training for decades to come. And that's just been our involvement in less than 2 years in this area.